What happened to your junior world championship jersey?
Well, the podium jerseys, one of them is hanging on my closet door and the other one's hanging on my mirror in my room. And they pretty much stay there unless my mom tells me to bring them to a race or something in case someone would want to see it.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro, and with me is Matt Hansen. Welcome, Matt.
Welcome. I was just thinking we should call it the Canadian Cyclocross Magazine podcast today, shouldn't we?
Oh, right. Yes, because this is very cross. I've spoken with 6 stars of Canadian cyclocross, and we are dropping this episode just ahead of Cyclocross Nationals. Not Nats. I like to say Nats, but you don't like Nats, do you?
I also like to say the Nationals. People just say Nationals now, but that's a whole other thing. That's like I don't know, like it's the Worlds, not Worlds. But anyway, no one says it like that anymore, so I'm not going to bother.
Wow, there's something that I'm chill about in terms of like
I know, and I really
style
don't care
guide.
about anything. I don't care about anything at all, ever. But that I care about.
Yet this sticks in your craw.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cyclocross Nationals is a few days away, and the competition is returning to Victoria. And a lot of athletes are returning who were there last year. Last year, you remember, this was Cyclocross Nationals' return after the pandemic hiatus and forced delays and cancellations and stuff. Now, while Nationals is the news peg, is the reason we're talking, the story goes actually beyond Nationals because this is the halfway point in many of the athletes' seasons. It is either a new chapter to their season or an end. And I think the snapshots we gain from these 6 riders really tells us a lot about cyclocross as it's practiced by Canadians. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is supported by Canyon, particularly the new Canyon Lux Trail. As I mentioned in the last episode, this is a new release. Mountain bike editor Terry and I are working on getting him one to test. But you could get one before Terry. It's available now at canyon.com. The new Canyon Lux Trail is born from an unrelenting need to push our limits, redefining what can be done on an XC bike. Speed is at the heart of the Lux Trail, but Canyon wanted that speed to last all day long and give riders the confidence to push their limits on rough and demanding endurance trails. To make all-day speed a reality, Canyon completely redesigned the Lux Trail to make it an ultra-capable XC bike that's incredibly light, exceptionally fast, and cleverly equipped with all that riders need to claim KOMs on Strava and FKTs. And in a new type of competition, you can beat reviewer Terry to a new Lux Trail by ordering it now on canyon.com. All right, Matt, we have 6 athletes.
Well, technically 5 athletes and one sort of athlete, now coach. I'm sure he's still quite athletic, though, since he raced just 5 seconds ago, basically.
It's true. One of these athletes is retired, kind of. We'll get into that. We have former and current national champions, some of them multiple-time winners, Pan Am champions, that's plural, champions in other disciplines, and even a world champion. And really, these 6 riders only show you a little bit of the talent that will be on the course in Victoria. Okay, give me the name of one of the people we spoke to.
Well, let's do Mr. Vandenham, shall we? Let's start with the oldest guy in the group here. Go down.
The oldest dude. Yes, Michael Vandenham. I spoke with him. Also, Sidney McGill, Luke Valenti, Evan Russell, Rafaelle Carrier, and Isabella Holmgren.
I will feel older because I know Luke Valenti's uncle. But anyway, I race with the guy, so that's another father or mother who's got a kid. Well, and Holmgren too. Christ, jeez, it's all just kids, the people I used to race with. Carry on.
And Hansen is having his seniors moment.
Well,
Now, as we know, Michael Vandenham will not be racing nationals. He will be there, though. And all of these riders are connected with the competition in one way or another. I think, as I mentioned before, they all provide some important context for what this event means and what it means to have cyclocross goals with, travel expenses and also with goals that might lie beyond the cross season. So let's not dally anymore. Let's jump into the interview with Michael Vandenham, a 4-time national cyclocross champion. Michael Vandenham, 4-time national cyclocross champion, who is now somewhat retired. We'll get into that. How were your last few races of the season?
Yeah, thanks. So the last few races I did were the last round of the USCX, and then the Pan Am Championships the following weekend, and I would say quite good and then profoundly mediocre, which isn't really the worst thing in the world, right? Every race can't be a great race, or you wouldn't have any great races, I guess. But yeah, I managed to get on a podium, I guess, one last time in a cross race or a UCI level cross race at Really Rad on the first day, and that was nice to do. It'd been a couple of years since I'd been able to pull that one off, and also meant that I was able to get third overall in the series. So that was kind of a season goal as well going into it. And you know what? I'll be honest, having I guess he's 7 months old now. He's not a newborn, but having a kid going into the season, I had no idea what to expect. So in a lot of ways, finishing things off at the same or maybe even slightly better level than I had the year before kind of feels like a victory, right? I think any parents out there will understand that, your life changes just a little bit when the kid's thrown into the picture.
Just a smidge. Yeah, they're not as understanding when you need sleep and other stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah, definitely, as a whole, my training's been really good this year, but the recovery part of it is absolute wild card. So I'm a little more up and down maybe in terms of race performances than I have been in the past. And yeah, I'm sure Rowan has something to do with it, but wouldn't change that for anything.
Your podium was, as you mentioned, at the Really Rad Festival in Falmouth, Massachusetts. You came in third, and that was a pretty exciting, hard-won third. That was quite the battle between you, Jules Van Kempten, and fellow Canuck Luke Valenti. How was that for you in that race, duking it out with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I really only duked it out with them for the last lap and a half, maybe. I foolishly or bravely or whatever decided that I was going to go for the win, and was riding with Curtis for the first half of the race, and then just kind of made a little mistake and got popped off, but also blew up simultaneously and was really just like in the no man's land, sort of 10 seconds behind Curtis for a while and 10 seconds ahead of that Jules Van Kempen, Luke, and actually Tyler Clark was their group for a long time. And when I came back to them, I was pretty blown. And I was pretty worried that I was just going to get shuffled right out of the back of that group and finish fifth. But we had an awesome last lap battle. Like some of the most, I rallied a little bit, and some of the most fun racing I had all year, just sprinting each other into corners, putting shoulders into each other, trying to get into the technical sort of decisive wood sections first, and trying to figure out how to like win that group. So it ended up, I lost the sprint by, I don't know, half a wheel, if that, but it was just a really fun last lap race.
Now, I kind of teased at the beginning that you are retired as a cyclocross racer, but sort of not. We're speaking mid-November at the moment. I believe you have a race coming up anyway.
That's right. So I'm retired or stepping aside from UCI level cross racing to be the national team coach. But I'm still actually going to race Chilliwack or British Columbia cyclocross provincials, largely in part because they're in my hometown, Chilliwack, and I'm helping design the course a little bit, and I'm going to be out there on Saturday, help setting it up, and, just couldn't help myself. I like racing bikes, even though I don't feel like I need to race a cross bike on the UCI level anymore, I'm still going to race bikes. And next summer, I'm still going to do a pretty full gravel calendar. But when it comes to fall, instead of packing things up and traveling around to do the cross circuit, I'll be traveling to do, to do some cyclocross events, but as a coach instead of a racer.
Now, tell me more about your role at Cycling Canada as a coach there. What is that going to have you doing in the near term?
So we sort of have three things planned this year. So my official title is, national team coach, cyclocross lead. And basically that means that I'm going to be the on the ground coaching presence at the cyclocross projects and camps that Cycling Canada runs. So for this year, we're doing a development camp the day before nationals. That's Friday, whatever it is, the 24th, I think. And that one's targeted towards juniors and U17s. And really that's not just about the athletes who are going to be doing worlds this year, but kind of looking to the future a little bit, like who are the athletes who might be there in 2 or 3 years, and what do we need to do to make them like a little bit more comfortable with the national team coaches, to start introducing some of these ideas of like what you need to do for equipment, how you need to pre-ride, all of this stuff, because you want to lay that groundwork pretty early. Otherwise you show up to nationals in your second year junior and you end up making the world's team, and like you just haven't been exposed to that level of racing. And if we can drag that out over a couple of years and get people kind of used to the technical, physical, and equipment demands of cross, it's going to help everybody. And then I'll also be sort of the on the ground presence for the Christmas Cross project. So that's juniors and U23s that are traveling with Cycling Canada. We'll do 6 or 7 races throughout that block, including a bunch of World Cups. And then, of course, the World Championships. That project will include both the Hogerheide World Cup and then World Champs in Tabor. So I've done these projects as an athlete, like maybe, the first one I did was 2013 in Louisville. So 10-ish years. And I'm really excited to step into it from a coaching role.
So you mentioned at Nationals you will be running that workshop on the Friday before racing commences. What are you going to be looking for or during the actual races themselves? What's Coach Vandenham doing while the athletes are vying for Maple Leaf jerseys?
Yeah, great question. Really just being there and being helpful to the athletes. All of our selection criteria is completely objective. So it's sort of performance based. So I'm not necessarily looking for something out of an athlete, in terms of how they turn the bike or something from a selection standpoint, but I am looking for things that I can help people with. Where can this athlete improve? Because at an event like nationals, as the national team coach, you're not really rooting for anyone in particular. You're rooting for everybody to elevate the level of cyclocross in Canada. So any athlete who's out there, especially the juniors and the U23s, but any athlete who's out there who I think I can share something with, probably not on the day of the event, but after the fact, that's going to help them take that next step. That's what I'm there to do.
In Canada, Nationals is in November. Sometimes it's even at the end of October, depending on, what part of the country it's in. I feel like because of that timing, it requires some athletes to make some tough decisions, whether to end their North American racing early and go to Europe, or to stick around some more in North America to attend nationals and maybe forego Europe for a few more weeks. You were an athlete who pretty much went to nationals on the regular. I don't remember you ever missing one. Can you tell me why nationals was important for you during those years of top racing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that reason is sort of twofold. Is one, there's only so many chances you get to race for a jersey. And I just personally find those really valuable. I was always very proud to be able to wear the Maple Leaf jersey when I was racing in the US, racing in Europe. And in order to do that, you need to show up and try to win the thing, right? I think maybe the second element there, though, is that was always the peak of my season, in the sense that it was the most important race to me. And in a large part because I had some success in Europe, but I wasn't really good enough to be vying for podiums at a World Cup, for example. So I think it's a little bit of a different equation when you look at someone like, say, Magali, who said isn't racing nationals. She's in a bit of a different spot where she's trying to do really well at the World Cup overall. And for her, we always make these calculuses at the beginning of the season, like, what are my season objectives? What's important to me? And for her, the World Cup has come out as something that's really, really important. And like, rightly so, she has a chance to do really well at that, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good distinction about an athlete's goals and where they want to direct their energies. On the topic again of nationals, what can you tell us about the course, which is in Layritz Park, Saanich, BC, which is just north of Victoria?
Yeah, so it's the same park nationals were at last year. So I think we can expect a relatively similar course. Probably the one notable difference is last year we actually had a really dry October and November in the West Coast, and this year has been much, much wetter. So some of the features might change just because they're more saturated than what we saw last year. Like I know nationals had some mud last year, but it was really mud on top of dry ground. And this year the ground's soft, everything's green. Like there's more potential for mud, even if all things remain the same as far as rain falling on the day of. I don't think there's any major course changes planned, but I would let John Watkins speak to that a little bit more closely. I haven't seen the course map, and I haven't been on the course yet this year. But just like last year, it's a tricky course. It got slick last year, and I think it really favored good bike drivers, people who could sort of skate their bike around the turns. But it also has lots of on and off the bike stuff, especially with the one big notable off camber. There's a lot of great decisions there about, do you run it? Do you ride it? Do you run some sections, ride other sections? So yeah, it favors definitely a cyclocross skill set. And I think that's why we saw someone like Tyler win last year. He's good on and off the bike, good at skating around the turns. And the same could be said for everyone who won their categories.
All right, Coach Vandenham, thank you for your time. And good luck with the next phase in your career.
Yeah, you are very welcome. Thank you for having me.
From Michael Vandenham, we're going to move to another experienced Canadian cyclocrosser. That's Sidney McGill. She won her first nationals as a junior in 2013. Since then, she's had 3 more championship wins. Now, like Vandenham, she won't be racing nationals. But unlike Vandenham, she won't even be at the event. She's not even in the country now. So, Matt, you might ask, why talk to her?
She's in Europe racing. She's not just, I don't feel like going. Which is, I think that's we've talked with this Magali and Sydney and some of the other cyclists, that it's unfortunate that, we live in a country 5,000 kilometers away from the World Cups, because it's just not feasible for them to stick around here sometimes, which is a shame.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to speak with McGill, to get into some of these decisions that she has to make with regard to her season and where to race, geography being what it is. So here's McGill on her 2023 season as she moves from one phase to another. Sidney McGill, we're speaking in early November. This cyclocross season, you are on a new team, Cervelo Orange Living. How has your season been so far?
It's been really good. I was really excited when this opportunity came about with Cervelo Orange Living. And it's been really fun to be traveling with the team and racing. And I was able to do the full USCX series this year. So the season is off to a pretty good start, and yeah, enjoying it.
You did do the full season, and you were 3rd overall in the standings for elite women, and you were on the podium 6 times. That ain't too shabby.
Yeah. I had some good results in there. Definitely happy to get on the podium a handful of times. I was hoping in that last weekend at Really Rad to be able to climb up one more spot in the rankings, but I ended up being just a little bit shy. But hard to complain about a podium overall. So
True. Did you have a favorite race from that series?
ooh, it's hard to pick one. They were all really good courses, and it was a fun season. I think Rochester Day 2 was really exciting. There was a lot of mix-up and some excitement between crashes, and then Megs had a mechanical, and we ended with an all-Canadian podium there with Megs, Bella, and I. So that one's up there for sure. Yeah, it's been fun. Falmouth, really rad day too as well, was fun and some mud and slipping around.
What does the next part of your cyclocross season look like?
Yeah, so I'll be heading um this weekend. So mid-November I'll go over to Europe and I'll do the next 5 World Cups in a row. So France, Ireland, France, Italy, and then Belgium. And then after that, I'm going to take a little bit of a break and come back home to Canada for Christmas. So I'll have a little bit of a mid-season pause before I return to Europe for the last 2 World Cups and Worlds for the season.
Now, last year, if I'm not mistaken, you stayed in Europe for the full World Cup stretch. Was that the case?
Yeah, yep. I did every World Cup last year and spent all winter over there.
And so why change it up this year? Why the return home for Christmas?
Last year, I really loved doing all the World Cups, but it ended up being quite a bit. By the end of the year, I was a little bit burnt out, pretty tired, and then just wasn't kind of at peak performance for Worlds, which of course isn't ideal. So this year wanted to try and work in a little bit more recovery or just downtime that's not racing. As last year I raced, I think, every single weekend except for one from the beginning of September until February. So that kind of perfect timing was in around the Christmas block. I get to do some of my favorite World Cups leading up to that, including Dublin, Italy, and Namur, and then just shut it down. Spend Christmas at home with family for the first time in many, many years. So I'll look forward to that. And yeah, it just kind of was a decision of give and take and trying to find the right balance.
That makes a lot of sense. Some of those races that you are returning to this year, I'm thinking of Ireland, and that's the Dublin World Cup, and the World Cup in Italy, Val di Sole. Those were some of your best results last year. You were 8th in Dublin and 9th in Val di Sole. What are some of your hopes and expectations for this season's European segment, parts 1 and part 2?
Yes, last year those 2 races were definitely highlights with top 10s. This year, of course, looking to try and repeat and improve on that. Last year, Dublin didn't have the biggest turnout, so I'm thinking that this year a lot of people kind of got to see what a great event it was last year and will come out. So it'll be a tough race, probably some more competition, but looking to try and hold on to those top 10s, build on them. Yeah.
Sidney McGill, you were the under-23 national cyclocross champion in 2019 and back in 2016. Last year, like this year, you took on World Cup races instead of racing nationals. Can you tell me about those choices?
It's a very tough decision to pass on going to nationals, especially last year, it being our first nationals in Canada after a little hiatus following COVID and complications. It's not a decision I took quite lightly, but it kind of just came down to one was, of course, cost, and last year deciding to do the full World Cup season to come back from Europe to Western Canada is not the cheapest flight to book. And also just with nationals conflicting with the World Cup schedule, I've decided I wanted to focus on the international racing and experience. It's unfortunate that it doesn't line up well. This year, I considered it quite a bit more than last year. As last year, I committed to the full World Cups. That was my goal, was just to do the full World Cup schedule, and nationals was on, I believe it was Hulst World Cup weekend. This year, I did look into what it would take to stay in Canada quite a bit, but just with it being 3 weeks after Pan Am's and Ireland World Cup weekend, just wasn't the right plan for me, sadly.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because the Dublin World Cup is the day after nationals. That I don't even think that is physically possible to do both. But it is a tough choice, and Magali Rochette is, like you, focusing on Europe now. I guess it's just a tough decision that Canadians have to make, just based on geography, time zone, and, like you mentioned, cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think had this schedule been slightly different, I think there maybe would be more riders available to go to nationals, but just the way it lined up this year, unfortunately, a couple of us have to make the call to pass on racing for the Maple Leaf and look to the European experience.
Who are some riders you expect to see on podiums at Cyclocross Nationals this year?
Well, for the elite women, what I would be racing, I know Ava Holmgren will be out there. If she can get the repeat after upgrading to elite nationals last year and then repeating again this year, that would be really awesome. Bella Holmgren for U23 women would be, I think, top of the list for my picks for sure. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that boat. Rafaelle Carrier, she did very well all season. I think Janaea Francis as well is really strong in the U23 women's category. Lots of awesome development in Canada, of course, on the women's side and on the men's as well. Got Ian Ackert in U23 and Luke Valenti. And then the elite men, Tyler Clark and Cody Scott's been racing the full US season.
Definitely. Well, I'm sure you'll be maybe refreshing Twitter from afar to see who did what at Nationals. And I hope you have a good season in Europe. All the best there.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'll be glued to my phone that Saturday. Refreshing, texting everyone. Can't wait to hear all about it.
And that was Sidney McGill. Like Magali Rochette, she is currently in Europe. They were both at the World Cup in Troyes, France. So I want to go back to a point Michael Vandenham made. Both Rochette and McGill are series contenders for top 10 placings at World Cups, so it makes sense to get over there sooner rather than later. However, both did Waterloo in Wisconsin, but there's just simply more top-level cyclocross in Europe. One of the riders to watch that McGill mentions is Luke Valenti. He is the 2022 Under-23 cyclocross champ, and you were speaking to him earlier this year, Matt, for another one of his big results.
Yeah, I think he's the youngest guy to ever win both. I mean, it's an incredible accomplishment for him. I think he's a real talent. I think we're going to hear a lot from him in the future. But it's great to see, a top road guy also doing cross, because in Canada especially, it could be someone that only does cyclocross, could be a mountain biker. We don't see as many of the women and men who race on the pro kind of Conti level road racing as well doing cross, just because of logistics. And it's also the specialized thing. So it's cool to see him do it.
Yeah, and actually you touched on something that I explore in this interview with Valenti. I think that victory at the Tour de Beauce on the road side and also his victory last year on cyclocross are two things that really he has to balance on the CX side and on the road side. And we unpack that in this interview. Luke Valenti, 2023 Under-23 National Cyclocross Champion. It's mid-November. How would you describe your cyclocross season so far?
I would say it's been a progressive season for sure. Like in the start of the year, I was a little bit farther back, but throughout the last couple of weeks, I've been moving up and up, getting better with each race. So it's been going quite well. I'm happy with how it's been so far. Yeah.
What has been your favorite race?
I think the two races in Falmouth are really rad because I've done them in second year, junior, and last year and this year. So it's been nice to go back to a course I've done over the past few years. I've been racing in the UCI circuit. So yeah, it's been good. I like these two.
I was going to say that was one of my favorite races of yours, the C2 race in Falmouth, where you had quite the battle with Curtis White for the first first half, I'd say, of that race. It was pretty exciting to watch you guys.
Yeah, it was a difficult race for sure. It was kind of tricky conditions because in the hours before the race, it was just getting worse and worse. So it was kind of difficult to choose tire and pressure. So
What tires did you settle on for that race?
oh, I use muds. I could have gone, I think, with a little bit less of a tread, but I would rather just not risk crashing as much for a little bit slower speed in the faster sections where it's more about pedaling. So yeah, I chose to go with the mud, but I'm sure there was a lot of people on mixed tires still.
Now, this past year, you raced on the road with EcoFlow Chronos. Your biggest success was the overall win at the Tour de Beauce. How has your road season, or how did your road season set you up for the cyclocross you've raced so far?
Yeah, I think it made me a lot stronger for this coming year in cross. I did a lot of volume in really difficult races. All the races I did in Europe were difficult, so I think it really helped me progress and yeah, just get stronger for the races that I've done in the fall this year. And yeah, you can see like compared to last year, I'm doing much better than I was at the same time. So yeah, I think just all the volume and all the hard races, I think really helped.
Now, what are advantages that riders coming from an off-road background, what advantages might these riders have over you?
I think for sure the technical ability. I know road or cyclocross, sorry, is a little bit different than mountain bike. Like you can see the skills aren't fully transferable, but I think a lot of the fundamentals are still there that you get from mountain biking, and a lot of the punchiness that's required from mountain biking translates a little bit better than from road. Like more of the road guys are more diesel and like just fast, high speed, but a lot of the mountain bike guys are more punchy and better on the tight corners and the ups and downs, barriers.
How do you make up for the advantages that the off-road people have? Is it with the diesel engine that you have? Is that where you gain the advantage?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think it's mostly in the fast sections and the sections that require a lot of power for a sustained amount of time. I think that's where I thrive a little bit better than some of the other guys coming from other disciplines.
Looking to the National Cyclocross Championships, what were the highlights from last year's Nationals, other than you standing on the top step of the podium?
I think for sure, actually, the second day was a really positive outcome. I was sitting most of the race in seventh or sixth, but in the last lap and a half, I really turned it on. I went up four places in the last 10 minutes of the race. So I thought that was like yeah, a really nice outcome and a really good way to conclude my season. So I was really happy with it.
You mentioned that last year your season wrapped up after Nationals. Will that be the case this year?
Yeah, it will also be the case this year. I need to take some time off to prepare for my road season and rest up. So I think it'll be more beneficial to do that instead of go to Europe and race.
Now, you raced in Europe in 2021 over that season. Will you look at the cyclocross races going on, over the Christmas period this year and maybe wish you could be there?
Yeah, for sure. Last year I got a lot of FOMO from not being there, and I really wish I was. But yeah, I need to take some rest and prepare for my season on the road. But yeah, for sure, I think this year I will be the same. I think I'll be wishing I was racing.
Yeah, that is a balancing act, for road cyclists who dabble in cross. There's only so deep into the cross season that you can actually go. What would the danger be, or how might that affect your road season if you were to, say, keep going with cyclocross into December and January?
I think for me it would just be burnout. That's one thing I'm really not I'm really afraid of burning out. So for me, yeah, that's like the highest priority is just to be healthy in the mind and just try and stay as fresh as possible throughout the year because in the road it's really important I think to be fresh as possible in your mind and in your legs. So yeah, I think yeah, for sure it's a bit of a balancing act like you said, but you have to try and make the best of it and I just like to use the cross season to make me better for the road and vice versa, the road season to make me better for cross. So I think they go hand in hand pretty nice.
Well, right on. Well, thank you for your time, Luke. I hope the few cross races you have left go well, and good luck in the road season ahead.
Thank you.
And that was Luke Valenti. What I found interesting is how he's being very careful not to burn himself out. For a few years now, we've seen, say, Matthew Vanderpoel or Wout van Aert or Tom Pidcock seemingly do everything they wanted. But even they are resting now. You, Matt, did a story recently just chronicling, it was Tom Pidcock and what his plans are.
Also, wow, they're both basically doing a condensed cross season, and they're both not doing the World Championships because it's just, they got to prepare for the classics or the tour or whatever, and it just screws up their season. It's a long season for them. So, I mean, I'm sure Matthew Vanderpoel's probably not unhappy about that, but yeah, very different season for them this year.
For sure. And we even saw Puck Peters. She just returned to racing this past weekend. Fem Van Empel's on a break, and I believe she's coming off that break shortly. So while there's all this talk about mixing up disciplines and all the benefits, I think the conversations around rest and recovery are also at the forefront. And I don't know if that's the team saying, whoa, 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 you can't do this, or maybe riders like Valenti knowing that, yeah, I got to maybe dial it back. I can't do it all.
I think also, some of these people we're talking about, they don't just do cross for fun because it really isn't fun even when you're fit. They want to win, right? So they're not going to do something unless they're going in, with, you've got to do your running, you've got to do your cross stuff, you've got to be fully in on this sport. And if you want to win, obviously.
As another follow-up to Valenti's interview, he mentioned that he is aiming to race elite. If you're like me and refreshing start lists constantly, you might have noticed that he is in the under 23 category, but he's still exploring the possibility of making the switch. That would allow him to have a rematch with the person in the next interview. That is Evan Russell. In 2022, Russell was second to Valenti in the under 23, and Russell will be in elite this year. Oh, and remember how Vandenham said he was riding BC Provincials? He was racing BC Provincials? He did. He was second to Evan Russell. Both Valenti and Russell are on the roadie side of things, but Russell, unlike Valenti, is planning to not have any Euro FOMO this winter. Russell is exploring options to get himself over to Europe for the big races.
That's exciting. Yeah, I like him too. I mean, he, again, a really good road racer that's doing it, but he's also, as we know, pretty good in the gravel as well, which isn't surprising. If he's good at cross and good at road, then he's going to do well on gravel races.
That's right. Now, let's hear from Evan Russell. Evan Russell, could you bring me up to date on your cyclocross season? How has it been?
Yeah, so far it's been quite good. It's been not super eventful, but I've been doing a lot of local series, so Cross on the Rock, and almost every weekend we have like a grassroots racing scene. So you go up and down Vancouver Island, and so right now I'm in school. And so that's kind of limited me to travel to the C2s and the World Cups, especially like Waterloo and that sort of thing. But, I've got to race with some local guys and I've really enjoyed that. And then recently Pan Am's just happened in Missoula. So my parents and I, we did a 12-hour road trip and drove down through Idaho and Montana and did the C2 on the Saturday and then the Pan Am Championships on the Sunday. Yeah, and then just last weekend, I finished the Cross on the Rock series. So not the most eventful compared to other guys that are doing cross full time and are on all the cross teams. But, I've definitely enjoyed my season so far. And I've got provincials this weekend and nationals next weekend. So, yeah, it's going well. And there's lots in the future.
Now, yeah, as you mentioned, we're speaking just ahead of BC Provincials and also ahead of Nationals, and I'll circle back to Nationals in a bit. But the Cross on the Rock series, as listeners know, I'm here in Toronto in the Big Smoke, and I read and get emails about the Cross on the Rock series all the time, and it's an enviable series. Like, it's well run, and I'd say that's a pretty good training for you, even though maybe you haven't been doing the big US races. Does that also jive with your sense of things?
Yeah, so Cross on the Rock is run by Norman Thibault. Great guy. He's been running it for a long time. And yeah, it's just been lovely to do. And I find with cross, like you don't necessarily need to race the huge races and those super fast races to get training. Because if you think of road, like you can't show up to a huge 2.1 or 2 Pro or any of that sense and do fantastically just because you need that leg speed and that race speed. But with cross, you know, these courses Norm's putting up are incredible, and you can just train and you can go super hard and as fast as you want. And I find like, I don't necessarily need the super fast guys to be there to get a good race in and get a good training race in. So yeah, it's a really fun series.
You've had a pretty full season ahead of cyclocross season. In April, you became the national gravel champion. In June, you were third in the BC edition of the Belgian Waffle Ride. Also in June, you had some good results at the Tour de Beauce. You were twice on the podium in stage finishes and third in the points and young rider competitions. How did racing on road and gravel position you for this year's CX races?
With road, I find it gives me that leg speed and some of that snap that you really need for cross. And with gravel, I find it really gives me that technical skill aspect and really just figuring out like how to ride essentially a road bike off road. And so when you combine both of them, you bring these road tactics to gravel and the road leg speed to gravel, but then you bring those technical skills to road. And then when you combine those two, I find it sets me up fantastically for cross, because cross is only an hour, and you need that like kind of 5 minute power, that 5 second power. You need those shorter end powers, and that just naturally comes with gravel and road. So I find the technical aspect of gravel really, really helps in cross, but then the power and the snap from road also helps.
Now, I'm wondering about the technical skills that you gain from gravel and how you might compare them with some of your competitors who are on mountain bikes. You are racing a bike on gravel that is a lot more like the cross bike, but the folks who are on mountain bikes are tending to push the technique and the technical abilities a bit further than any curly bar sort of racing. So yeah, how do you situate yourself in that sort of continuum from, mountain gravel to road in terms of gaining technical skills for cross?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think about every time I race cross and gravel, comparing to these mountain bike guys, because I'm used to a stiffer bike and no suspension and harder tires, and so I have been very curious to see like what's the difference here, and figuring out like who's got the advantage at the race. And I don't know if anyone truly has like the advantage over the other. But growing up, I rode a mountain bike and I raced a mountain bike. I did provincials, I think, a few times as a young guy. But to be honest, I think for myself, I found Christmas cross last year. Some of the cross guys do road, but a lot of the other cross guys also just race mountain bikes. And so I found my technical skill was lacking a lot. And so the past year, I've really tried to make a conscious effort of riding my mountain bike more and figuring out different technical skills and really working on that, because I found that there was a technical gap between the mountain bikers and me. Because, road, as we know, it's you just kind of ride a road bike as hard as you can and move your way through the pack, and there's not like much technical aspect going on. And I found learning those technical aspects as well has really benefited me in my road season and in my road races. But yeah, I think with mountain bikers, I'd really like to try it myself and compare, because I don't truly know that question, because I haven't raced a mountain bike in a long time. So I think for the next year, I really would like to try to do a few mountain bike races and compare, and then I'll truly know like, okay, exactly how the mountain bike versus the road bike handles.
All right, well maybe we'll circle back to this one in about a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, as I mentioned, we're speaking ahead of nationals. What are your goals this year? Or maybe a better question is, how are you feeling ahead of nationals in 2023?
I think for nationals coming up, I'm feeling confident, but with cross, it's a lot of things can go wrong, and you have to have a lot of things go right to actually win a race or do well. So yes, I've had a great road season. I finished with Tour of Britain a couple months ago here, and so that's given me kind of that road power and that road aspect of things. And then coming off of that, I'm in school. I go to the University of Victoria and I'm studying computer science. So that's kind of shortened up my training days. But with those shorter training days, I've been able to be more efficient, really work on that higher power and that higher intensity ride. And so for nationals, I was second last year in U23, and I'm not putting it just on this, but I didn't know like bike changes were a thing or figuring out exactly what pressures to run or what tires to run. And so, I'm eager to do well at this nationals, and coming off of Pan Am's, I'm feeling confident after that, but there's a lot of tough competition in Canada. And so, cross is an interesting one because a lot of things have to go right.
And so, who are you keeping an eye on the start line? Who are riders to watch for your race?
Definitely Tyler Clark, who was the national champion last year. He's ripping, and he was just at Pan Am's, and he was going super strong. So he's for sure a guy to watch out for. Last weekend, Carter Woods, who's a World Cup winner, and he will be at nationals, I believe. So he's definitely another guy to watch out for. Logan Sadesky, I think he's racing nationals as well. We've been battling it out at Crossing the Rock, and he's going super strong. I feel like those are probably the top three guys I'm watching out for. I think Quinton de Serra is also a really fast guy. He got second at nationals last year, so he's a guy to watch out for. But, with like Carter Woods, I don't know if he has a lot of UCI cyclocross points, so he'll start a little further back. And with cross, obviously, start is kind of everything. But with Tyler Clark, like he'll be front row, right up there. And so I think it'll come down to, those top 4 or 5 guys at the end of the day, fighting it out.
And after nationals, what are some of your plans for the next part of the cross season, and maybe even also looking ahead to road? What's ahead for you?
Yeah, I think for the next little bit here is finishing up nationals and then finishing my school semester. And I'd really like to go back to Belgium and Netherlands for Christmas cross. I just need to figure out a few logistics with funding and getting the support to be able to go race some of those races. But that's definitely on the horizon, is going back over. And, I was drinking from a fire hose last year from Christmas cross, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great time. So I'd love to do it again and have that experience. And, it's with Christmas cross, you're just forced to learn, and you're forced to like ride a bike at a faster speed that you would ever deem possible. So I think for the next few years here, I'd really like to make those gains in cyclocross and in my technical ability. And I think going to Christmas cross would be a great opportunity to learn more and figuring out how to ride cyclocross really well. And with road, looks like my main road season is going to start kind of around April, hopefully with Redlands. And then there'll be a bunch of other road races going on forward. And I think I did 2 main gravel races and 1 kind of local gravel race, and I just really enjoyed that. And so I'd really like to incorporate a little more gravel and maybe go back to Paris to Ancaster and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely incorporate more off-road in conjunction with my road season.
Well, that seems very of the moment, juggling different disciplines and letting one sort of influence the other and help the other along. I'd say best of luck with that, Evan. I'm interested into seeing how you put it all together, and I hope you make it to Europe this year. Last year you had quite the you said fire hose. I'm looking at the races you went to. You had Bunch of World Cups, X2O, some Super Prestige. You were really in the deep end, to use another water metaphor there.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. No, and that was all thanks to the support of Cycling Canada. I finished nationals and I talked to Rob Holmgren, who was the national team coach last year. And yeah, it was the project that Canada put on. It was pretty incredible. And I'm just looking at my pro cycling stats. It's crazy the amount of races that we went to. And yeah, I think I think it really set me up for, the road season and my gravel season, and all of this is just really building. And yeah, so I'd really like to go back for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Evan, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
That was Evan Russell. And I just want to add a bit of a clarification. We've been throwing around terms, and the riders have been throwing around terms like Christmas cross. What is the correct term there, Matt, for Christmas cross?
I don't speak Flemish. Sorry, you can tell us.
Oh, I'm sure you've heard the term.
No, I call it Christmas cross.
Sorry. Right. Cursed period. I'm probably saying it wrong, but that's how it looks on the page. This is, of course, the block of racing that happens around December 25th. But in Canada, we have the Christmas Cross Project, and it's an initiative by Cycling Canada. It's what Vandenham was speaking about earlier. It supports juniors and under 23 riders for a stretch of time in Europe. Now, Russell participated in this last year, but he can't this year because he's an elite. So it won't be the Christmas Cross Project that will take him to races over Christmas. Clear? Everyone got that?
Got it.
One rider who could benefit from Cycling Canada's Christmas Cross Project over the cursed period is Rafaelle Carrier. She wins just about everything. Like Russell, she is a national gravel champion, but Carrier is also under 17 cross country and short track champion. She is the junior Pan Am cyclocross champ. Oh, and just recently she became the Quebec cross champ.
A lot of jerseys she's getting. You can never have enough kit.
That's a closet full. However, she's never raced a cross World Cup, and that could change this year. Rafaelle Carrier, how would you describe your cyclocross season so far?
So, I've had a great season so far. I don't think I could have done any better, honestly. I had one second place at the very first 6 race in Rochester, but since then only got victories, which helped me to collect my first UCI points and move up in the ranking as well. And it's kind of a surprise for me to perform so well in cyclocross, knowing that I mainly concentrate on mountain bike. But it's a really fun discipline. And to come back to my season, it started in Rochester. I was kind of impressed by the amount of people actually. Usually we're like less than 10 girls in Quebec, but on the start line. But in Rochester, we worked like at least 20, which was a lot for me, even if I know it's nothing in Europe. So I'm really proud of my performances out there. And after it was Baltimore and Falmouth US Cup. I had 2 great races as well, and I celebrated for the first time in my life in Falmouth.
Well, how do you mean you celebrated for the first time with was that your first victory? No.
No, it was not, but when I crossed the finish line, I put my hand in the air for like the first time. Everybody was like, you need to celebrate. And it was like the first time I did it.
You're a bit shy with the victories, maybe?
Yes, I'm shy, but it was the first time I did it.
Excellent. Well, now you've practiced, I guess.
Yes. And then it was a Pan Am Championship. And I managed to get the title, which I'm really proud of. It's for sure the biggest win of my life, I think. And that's it for my cyclocross season, I think.
Yeah, well, and we're speaking before nationals, but shortly after Quebec provincials, where you also won, and it was a mixed field, and you finished ahead of everyone, including senior women.
We started like I think 10 seconds behind the elite woman, and I finished like first overall woman.
Impressive. Now, you mentioned you race mountain bikes as well. This year you're the under 17 cross country champ and short track champ. And to add to that, you are the junior gravel champion. Now, your numerous successes, was one of them a favorite out of any of them?
Yeah, I would say the Pan Am was my favorite races, but not only because of the importance of that race, just I really like the course. Yes, it was really muddy, like it rained all night. So yeah, it made a very difficult course. And yeah, I like when the courses are challenging. But yeah, and overall, it was just a crazy weekend, and the organization was perfect. And I even won some Crocs, which is kind of original.
You won a pair of Crocs, a pair of shoes.
Yeah, they gave that instead of a medal, I think. I don't know if we have both, but
That's very practical, a pair of shoes you can slip on after the race.
yes, and they were like personalized with the Pan Am logo and everything.
Ah, that's a cool detail. So, mountain, gravel, cyclocross, do you have a favorite of all of these?
Yeah, I would say my favorite is mountain bike. Yeah, I like the ambience. I don't know if we can say that, but it's good at every races, and the people are always happy and everything. But I also prefer mountain bike because of the courses. Mainly, they are always different, and they always have so much climbing, which I really enjoyed. And I would also say that cyclocross comes in second position because I like the fact that there are several obstacles like running with the bike on your shoulders, sand sections, barriers, stairs. Yeah, it makes it really fun too.
You are based in Lac-Beauport, which is north of Quebec City. There's some pretty good mountain biking infrastructure around there, isn't there, to practice on?
Yeah, Sentier du Moulin, which is my favorite. Yeah, and yeah, a lot of other places where you can mountain bike too.
So, do you think you can keep your winning streak going at the national championships?
Yes, I think so. Well, I would like at least because nationals are quite important too. So yeah, it would be an honor to wear the national champion jersey on other races, especially if I go in Europe. And yeah, also I came short last year with the second position, so I would like to get a title for real this year.
You were second to Bella Holmgren, who you won't be racing against this year. She, I believe, is in the U23 category. So, yeah, I mean, you were second to a world champion, so it's not so bad.
Yeah, when I saw her winning, I was like, oh, that's quite fun that I raced against her, like, I don't know, 1 month ago.
So you mentioned the idea of Europe. This is a possible plan to head over to Europe sometime after nationals?
Yeah, as I said, if I get qualified with Team Can, I would like to do the crisscross program like in Belgium. And yeah, they take 4 junior girls. So yeah, I have pretty good chances. And yeah, if I take part in this camp, I would race my first ever World Cups.
Yeah, the Christmas cross by the Cycling Canada would be, well, that would be quite the opportunity. That sounds something pretty exciting.
Yes, because I know like in Europe, it's not the same as in North America. Like the field is really bigger and it's, yeah, more tough for sure.
Well, good luck at nationals, and I hope you do make it to Europe. I think that would be, like I said, a pretty exciting trip.
Yeah, really good opportunity. And like I also watch all the World Cups on GCN and the courses are like so impressive. Yeah,
Totally. All right. Well, good luck, and we'll talk to you later.
thanks.
And that was Rafaelle Carrier. I do want to add that I've been comparing some of her races with some of the other North Americans here and some of the ones that have raced in Europe. And I think we're going to see Carrier on a European podium this season. Next, it's from one rising star to another. Well, Isabella Holmgren is already a star, but her rise has been over the course of the past year. She won the Junior Cyclocross World Championship race in February, the Junior Cross Country World title in August, and the Elite Pan Am Championship jersey a few weeks ago. She's returning to nationals not in the junior category, which she won last year, but under 23.
And it's interesting. I learned something because as we know, we've never had a junior world or any world cyclocross champion before in Canada. And I was thinking about this fall, she'd be allowed to wear, or if she would be wearing her world championship jersey, because everyone wants to wear one of those. And it turns out maybe 10 years ago they changed the, let's say, fiscal year of cyclocross, because it used to be that you would race as a junior until December 31st, just like on the road. But that would be problematic because then you might do your junior nationals, but then you'd be a U23 and you might not qualify, et cetera, et cetera. So as the cyclocross season begins now in September or whenever, she's now a U23. So she never gets to wear that rainbow jersey in competition. I'm sure she, wears it around, and I mean, I'd sleep in the thing. But yeah, that's what happens when you're a junior, right? I mean, you get this jersey, you never get to wear it unless you're 16, but that never happens, right? It's always the 17-year-olds that win.
Well, I do ask Isabella about her junior world championship jersey, so we'll find out exactly its location, possibly. And without further ado, here is Isabella Holmgren. Isabella Holmgren, you are the 2023 Junior Cyclocross World Champion. You are also the 2022 Junior National Cyclocross Champion. But before we get into some of those awards, palmares, what were your goals for the early part of this cyclocross season?
So my goals for the early part of the cyclocross season were really just to get back on the bike and see how the racing was. I tried not to put too many expectations on myself and kind of just have fun with it. And yeah, just learn from all of the early races in the States and get ready for Europe.
And how did you find racing in the States? What were some of the highlights for you there?
Well, I've been racing in the States for a lot of years now, since I was pretty young, and I always really enjoy it. It's super fun. The organizers are always great. The people are great. Yeah, I'd say the highlights are just being able to race with all the North Americans and seeing friends, and yeah.
Now your form seems pretty good. You took on the Pan Am Championship race and you won in the elite category. Tell me about that race and that result and what that means to you.
So the race was super fun. The course in Missoula was a lot more fun and technical than I think most people expected it to be, just because I don't think there's ever been a big championship race there. So yeah, the first half of the race, I was slowly getting into it. I was having a little bit of trouble dangling on the pack of Sydney and Katie and Clara. And then as the race went on, I kind of found my groove a little bit more, I guess. And yeah, it just went up from there. And it's a super important race for me. I thought I tried to not put too many expectations on it just because I wanted to treat it like every other race. But I was super happy to win it because it was against such a strong field of girls and people that I've looked up to since I was younger. So
can you wear that jersey abroad? If I understand you're going to Europe later in the year, but can you wear that Pan Am Champ jersey in the races you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so I can. There aren't any U23 races, and because of that, I'll be racing in the elite category, so I can wear it at the World Cups and pretty much any race as long as it's an elite race. So that was also another reason for upgrading to elite.
Now, you also, as I mentioned, have the World Championship jersey, but that was won in the junior category, which you're not racing in currently. What happened to your junior World Championship jersey?
Well, the podium jerseys, one of them is hanging on my closet door and the other one's hanging on my mirror in my room. And they pretty much stay there unless my mom tells me to bring them to a race or something in case someone would want to see it.
It's almost a tragedy. They have more time in the closet than on any race course.
Yeah, but Mark Ackert made me some nice BioRacer jerseys that I'm able to wear in training, so that's nice.
Excellent. How would you compare things in your career today with where you were at just 1 year ago? Now, a lot has happened, but around this time in 2022, you had won a C2, a race in the U.S. It was the Really Rad Festival in Falmouth. You were third at the Junior Pan Am, and at Nationals, you were first in the junior category. So can you just compare last year to this year, just where you are in your career and the changes that have happened?
Yeah, so last year I was a second year junior and I had the entire year before to sort of learn and get experience in the junior field. And I think I was really starting to get like a hang of it and learn how to race against other juniors and things like that. I think the very start of the season last year wasn't necessarily the best for me, but as the season went on, I definitely got the hang of it, I think. But this year I'm now in the U23, you could even say elite field because there's so little U23 races. So now I'm just trying to like learn again. The racing is very different when you're against so many more people. And yeah, so I'm just trying to learn how to race against everyone. And yeah.
Before this year's cyclocross season, you did a mix of road and mountain bike racing. Is that the right blend for preparing for cross?
Yeah, I think every discipline can help with cyclocross. I mean, the road, there's so much like power, which definitely helps with cyclocross, and then the mountain bike has some more skills. So yeah, I'd say a little mix of everything is definitely helpful for cyclocross.
We're speaking just ahead of the National Cyclocross Championships. As I mentioned, you won in the junior category last year. What category will you be racing this year?
I will be racing the U23 category this year. And my sister is going to race the elite category.
And who are some of the riders you're watching out for in your category?
Not sure. I haven't checked the start list yet, but my teammate, Marin Lowe, she will be racing, I believe. And Ella McPhee, who's another mountain biker from Canada. And Janaea Francis for sure. She has had a really good season so far. So she's definitely one to look out for.
And what does the rest of your season look like beyond nationals?
So after nationals, we're gonna go back home for a little bit and probably have a bit of an early Christmas. And then there's some team camps in Spain, and yeah, we're just figuring out the rest of the cyclocross season. But we'll be doing some of the European Christmas cross block. But definitely a more condensed season than last year.
Now, the team camps you mentioned, this is with your road team, Lidl Trek?
Yeah.
Do you foresee yourself balancing the road duties that you have with your team and also cyclocross going into, I don't know, not just the year ahead, but even the next season?
Yeah, for sure. So road will definitely be the primary focus moving forward, but whenever I have the chance to do some cyclocross, I always will just because I love it so much. I think it'll be hard to find a balance, but I'm sure I will be doing some cross in the future.
Well, thank you, Isabella, and good luck with the balance. It is definitely exciting to watch you race on the mud and in the cross courses. And yeah, good luck with the road season ahead as well.
Thank you.
And that's the episode. It's written and edited by me, Matthew Piaro. I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
A lot of help. I'm the glue here. I'm keeping this ship together. That's me. You know, you can cut this, but why? Why cut it?
And what glue exactly? What type of glue?
What kind of glue?
Yeah.
I don't know, resin. Some kind of resin. Epoxy, maybe. Epoxy. The good stuff. The stuff that you get stuck on your fingers and never comes off.
And that's how I think of you.
Thank you.
Stuck to my fingers.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said.
We also had help from mountain bike editor Terry McCall, who will be at Cyclocross Nationals. Say hi to him and look...
The Cyclocross Nationals.
Say hi to him and look out for his coverage online. The Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick.
He also does the music.
He does! You remembered! Look at that! Thanks also to Ontario Creates. Matt, I don't know if you caught that in Isabella Holmgren's interview, how the jerseys might be divided up amongst the Holmgrens if everything goes according to plan. Remember, she has the Pan Am jersey, and Ava is racing Elite at Nationals, the Nationals.
These are real champagne problems, the Holmgrens. I got to say, Holmgren family. These are not champagne problems. These are Belgian beer problems because, you know, between the three of them there, I can't imagine how much crap they have at their house. You know, like all their kit and championship medals. I mean, it's just kind of like, Crimea River Holmgrens, you know. Oh no, who's going to win this one? Who's going to win this one? I'm sorry, Rob and Lisa.
You say this with love. I know. Good luck, everyone racing at nationals. To all the listeners,
The Nationals.
To all the listeners, thank you for listening. Ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.